All right, good evening, everyone. It is now 6 p.m. I'd like to welcome everyone to Richland County Council's regular session for July 18th, 2023. This meeting will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Branham.
Here.
Pugh.
Here.
McBride.
Here.
Livingston. Here. Teratio.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Barron.
Here.
Walker.
Here.
Mackey.
Here.
English.
Present.
Newton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Next item on the agenda is the invocation that will be provided by the Honorable Allison Teratio. Councilwoman, you are recognized.
Thank you. I'm excited to bring you the invocation tonight, inspired by our very own Mr. Bill Davis. I recently saw a post of his where he was talking about how to set your people up for success by slowly giving them authority over projects. And this really made me think about all of the people in my life who have entrusted me with something maybe that I felt like I was ready for, and maybe that I felt like I wasn't ready for, and how important it is for those of us who have authority to start to prepare other people to come up in the path. So if you'll take a moment, just, if you like, close your eyes, set yourself up in a comfortable way, and take a moment and reflect upon a teacher, someone in your life who has offered you that chance to step up. Think about the amount of trust that that person had in you and that you had to have in yourself in order to step into that place. Think about the outcome of that trust, how it felt to succeed in that moment, or maybe how it didn't feel. When we sit here in this room together, we're sharing trust. We, sitting here, have a great level of trust and authority placed in us. People in our staff have a great level of trust and authority placed in them. May we be able to be worthy of that trust and authority. And may we show others the way as they learn to step into their own capacity for trust and authority. We'll stand for the pledge.
Thank you, Mr. Teratio. In case, for those of you in the audience, as well as those who are watching online, if you notice that all the gentlemen on council tonight are not wearing ties, in continuation of I think it's a long-standing council tradition of no tie July?
Yeah.
Okay, so you recognize our Councilman Pugh.
As the chair of the No Tie July Committee, I would like to thank everybody for participating.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next item on the agenda is item 4, presentation of proclamations. 4A, a proclamation recognizing Senior Resources, Inc. and declaring August 21st as Senior Citizens Day. That will be given by the Honorable Cheryl English. Councilwoman English, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Proclamation recognizing Senior Resources Incorporated and declaring August 21st as Senior Resources Citizens Day. Senior Citizens Day, I'm going to get it together in a minute. Whereas Senior Resources Incorporated is dedicated to providing the services and support to senior citizens need to live a healthy, independent lives. Whereas Senior Resources serve as a connecting point for community organizations, staff, and volunteers to support and administer programs such as home care, transportation services, and meal delivery for more than 4,000 seniors in the Midlands. Whereas 85% of senior clients living at or below the national poverty level, Senior Resources acts as a community safety net by providing programs free of charge or at a reduced rate for seniors who cannot afford the cost of private services. Whereas, as a nonprofit, Senior Resources has maintained consistent services in the Midlands since 1967 with support from the local and state governments, philanthropic organizations, and individual donors. Whereas Senior Resources is strategically planning to expand the scope of its work to meet the needs of the growing number of Richland County residents over the age of 65. And whereas the county as a whole benefits from the invaluable wisdom, knowledge, and experience older adults contribute to our lives and communities. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that Richland County Council members Jason Branham, Derek Pugh, Yvonne McBride, Paul Livingston, Allison Terracio, Don Weaver, Gretchen Barron, Overture Walker, Jessica Mackey, Cheryl English, and Shakise Newton recognize and honors Senior Resources for its contributions to Richland County, and does hereby join in our nation in proclaiming August 21st, 2023 as Senior Citizens Day.
And I believe we have at least 2 proclamations this evening. So what we're going to do is just have both proclamations read, and then we will pose for photo ops over at the county seal once we're finished reading all the proclamations. Next proclamation is item 4B, a proclamation recognizing Jada Samuel, 2023 Miss South Carolina. That would be given by the Honorable Jessica Mackey. Madam Vice Chair, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I would like to start by saying this is a true honor for me to recognize Jada in this role, and to also point out that the Miss South Carolina pageant is held annually here in Richland County at the Township Auditorium. So if you haven't been, please make sure to support our township. A proclamation recognizing Jada Samuel, Miss South Carolina 2023. The Miss South Carolina Scholarship Organization is set out to advance the creation, promotion, and support of community service and educational opportunities for young women in the state of South Carolina, while providing a forum in which to express their opinions, talent, and intelligence. It is with great joy and admiration that we recognize the remarkable achievements and contributions of Jada M. Samuel, the distinguished recipient of the prestigious title of Miss South Carolina 2023. Jada's inspiring journey to becoming Miss South Carolina 2023 is characterized by her commitment to education, passion for communication, and dedication to serving as a change agent and champion for girls. Her pursuit of knowledge led her to the University of South Carolina School of Journalism and Mass Communications, where she excelled as a creative communicator, laying the foundation for her promising career as a lifestyle host. Jada's devotion to making a positive impact on the lives of others is further exemplified by her founding of I Shape Me Incorporated, a nonprofit mentoring organization that empowers girls and young women to shape themselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Her exceptional talents and dedication have been recognized throughout significant scholarship earnings of over $85,000 from the Miss South Carolina Scholarship Organization, a true testament to her exemplary performance in the competition, outstanding community service, and unwavering dedication to her platform. We celebrate Jada's historic achievement as the 4th African-American female to win the title of Miss South Carolina, representing a milestone of progress and inspiration for the entire state. As Jada prepares to compete for Miss America, representing South Carolina, we extend our wholehearted support and admiration for her endeavors. Now, therefore, Councilwoman Jessica Mackey of District 9 does hereby recognize the achievements of Jada Samuel, Miss South Carolina 2023. There truly is no limit to what we as women can accomplish. A quote from Michelle Obama.
So, Madam Clerk, let's begin with the first proclamation recognizing Senior Citizens Day.
While we're preparing for the next group, I just want to, on behalf of all the seniors of Richland County, just thank you, council, for this one tremendous honor, and it'll be my pleasure to share that with the seniors that we are serving this week. Thank you so much for your support today and every day. Thank you.
Oh, you want to do more? I think we're good. Oh, do y'all want, y'all can come out? Yeah. Or- Oh, I'm sorry, Dad.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am, I guess, going to wait. I'm not going to take too long. I know Jessica gave me a time limit. I am a talker, but I am going to keep it pretty brief today. I know that you guys have serious business to get down to, but I am truly elated, humbled, and honored. Thank you all so much for this proclamation. It means a lot. In August of 2014, I moved into my dorm room at the University of South Carolina, and this is a place that I was able to call home for about 8 years of my life during my formative young adult years. So I owe a lot to Richland County, the people that live here, and so many of the experiences that I've gained here. So I just wanted to say thank you all so much for this honor.
All right. Next item on the agenda is item 5, approval of the minutes. 5A, special call meeting from July 11th, 2023. Any changes, additions, or deletions?
Move to approve. Second.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the roll. The vote, rather.
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 6, adoption of the agenda. Any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda?
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? I have a question. Ms. Teratio, you mentioned something about a motion.
Yes. There was a motion that I submitted to the clerk's office for the motion period. How can I read that out to see if we?
The
What needs to
motion
be
is
added,
part of
added
the
to the agenda? So how
Actually,
would you?
it's on the most recent one that was sent out yesterday afternoon.
Correct.
Yes, so
The most recent one. Okay, so it is on there. All right,
Yes.
fair enough. Okay. Well, any additional discussion or questions? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
yes,
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 7, report of the attorney for executive session items. Mr. Wright, my reading of the agenda says that you do not have any items for executive session this evening. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 8, citizens input for items on the agenda not requiring a public hearing. Madam Vice Chair, anyone sign up to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one individual that signed up to speak this evening. Eric Friendly. If you would, state your first and last name, provide your address, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Eric Friendly. My address is 1601 Richland Street, and I'm the curator of history at Historic Columbia. So Historic Columbia has developed a new tool called Building Richland County, or BRC for short. This tool is a growing geographic database of Richland County's historic places and districts. And so far, BRC contains more than 250 historic places and all 18 historic districts in Richland County. For each historic place, information such as dates of construction, builder, architect, architectural style, preservation status, and historic designation is provided. BRC is a free resource for the public to learn more about local history. It's an important step for Historic Columbia to ensure the preservation of Richland County's historic places. And Historic Columbia is excited and very willing to offer public presentations on BRC, local history, and historic preservation to your constituents. So if you would like more information about BRC or how to schedule one of these public presentations, you should have received a flyer. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Mr. Chair, that concludes all individuals that have signed up to speak this evening.
All right, next
Mr.
item.
Chair.
You recognize Ms. Bear?
If I may have a point of personal privilege
Yes,
at this
ma'am.
time. As the liaison for Historic Columbia and just kind of seeing some behind the scenes working of this app and what they're doing, I would encourage each of us as council members as well as Richland County as a whole. It will allow to be plugged into this app. The gems that we have here locally that Historic Columbia manages for us is incredible, and they're right here in our back door, and a lot of times we don't take advantage of those opportunities. And so I would encourage everyone here tonight and those that may listen later on to really tap into the resources that Historic Columbia provides. I also partner with Historic Columbia through our HTAX funds, and every third Sunday from 1 to 4, you can tour different facilities that they manage at no cost, and that is for all Richland County residents. So the best way to tap into them is to follow them on social media or to go to their website. Thank you for the work that you all are doing.
Thank you, Ms. Bear.
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of personal privilege.
Recognize Ms. English?
Thank you. I just want to take a moment to recognize our staff. I've had several community meetings, and I know you all know that I have the largest district with a lot of different neighborhoods, but I want to commend the staff on their support, on coming out and speaking with the citizens and allowing citizens to see that Richland County is accessible and for all your work. And Maloney, Davis, Byrd, and Price were there and showed up, and I want to say showed out. They were stellar last night, Mr. Brown, and residents left saying, we didn't know Richland County offered all those services. So I just want to say kudos to your staff and for all you all do, and I just wanted to take a moment just to say thank you.
Thank you, Ms. English. Next item on the agenda is item 9, citizens input. Must pertain to Richland County matters not on the agenda. items for which a public hearing is required or a public hearing has been scheduled cannot be addressed at this time. Madam Vice Chair, anyone sign up to speak?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 10, report of the county administrator. Mr. Brown, you're recognized, sir.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if I should go after all the recognition of the staff. I might need you to.
You were in trouble after Miss South Carolina showed up.
I know. So just real briefly, I know many of you have received multiple emails about a number of county initiatives that we have going on. Again, we have a lot of things in progress. One of those things is the short-term rental ordinance that we have been talking about. So I just want to remind you, if you hadn't been able to give that much attention because you've been focusing on some other areas, if you have comments associated with that particular ordinance, if you could please get those to the clerk so she can get them to the Business Services Center director so that we can make headway on moving that particular item forward. Also want to just take a minute, and I'll go down the report as listed, and then I'll bring up one more item where we received a number of questions, and I think it would be helpful for me just to talk about some responses to those questions. But I'll start with the updates for consideration in your packet. Under A1, you have the classification and compensation study. We've been talking about this for quite some time, and I won't go over all the details, but specifically, this is the study that we were talking about where the county was going to put forth an effort to try to address how we go forward in a long-term strategy and address pay and compensation in Richland County. The details of the study are provided, and you've already approved the general funding in the budget. And we talked about the process, about the next steps. And so what the staff is asking for tonight through this particular item is for us to move forward and have those conversations with the elected officials and department heads associated with these departments and talk about what it looks like within their specific departments related to these particular salary structures. After that time, we would then be ready to come back to council and talk about here is the actual plan as we believe it needs to be implemented as worked out with all of the related department heads and officials in the county who oversee various agencies. So what you have there is, again, the details of the plan itself that speak to how it was put together, who were some of the players that we used to pit ourselves against. And if you go to page, I believe it's 29 and 30, I'll just take a few moments and read that into the record, Mr. Chair. So the market peers were certainly counties and cities and the state, but specifically Aiken County, Beaufort County, Charleston County, Charlotte-Mecklenburg County, City of Charlotte, the City of Columbia, City of Irmo, City of West Columbia, East Richland County, Greenville County, Lexington County. We did private sector law firms, the financial firms, Spartanburg County, State of South Carolina, University of South Carolina, and York County. And the reason why we did that is because when you look at where the competition is for Richland County, those are some of the larger communities and the larger areas where people come to Richland County, they drive from, they drive to, and so those are some of our competitors that the county looks at. So the county's pay plan study was not just limited to just surrounding counties. It included surrounding counties, it included larger counties, but it also included other outside agencies that we know we compete against. And if you look at their studies, they include us as well. So we do believe that those are all relevant peer groups for us to consider. So when you break all of that down, what you have is the study that talks about our current pay plan and how this pay plan will help us to address some of the initiatives that we said we wanted to see. So I'll stop there and pause just a moment. And again, the ask for this particular administrator's nomination item is to approve the staff to go forward to meet with the elected officials and department heads to literally walk them through what this would look like at their particular department level. We will then come back to county council and say, here is now the pay plan, not this big broad, what if, but we know we have these conversations with the officials and department heads. Everybody feels comfortable about moving forward. And then we will come to you and ask you for approval of that plan. And then from there, that plan would be something that is in constant motion. It will require a continual view of making sure we stay competitive. It will, just like our strategic plan, it's not something that will be stagnant. And the plan itself shows movement, which is different from what we do now, which is we think is a big deal for employees currently and future employees to see that when you come to Richland County, you can have a career. You can see how you can move along that career, whether you go in the same position or in other positions. And that's something we don't offer today. So we're really excited about the potential for us to move forward with this plan. And just to wrap up, you've already approved the budget. This is not asking for new money. So that's key to this conversation in case someone is thinking about whether or not we're asking for money that hasn't already been accounted for. That is not the case. You've budgeted for this. Now we're talking about next implementation steps.
Brown, does your ask really necessitate a motion from council? Or do you already have the authority to go and engage the various department heads and elected officials over county agencies?
Good question, Mr. Chair. I would answer the question this way. Since this is part of our strategic plan and the county council talked about this being a very important initiative for them, I think to capture it and to communicate to all the related departments that this is something that the county council in conjunction with county administration, but specifically the county council has put an emphasis on, I think it would be appropriate for a motion, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? You recognize Mr. Weaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what exactly are we voting on if it's not a monetary, but just to go forward with the study? Is that what we're?
No. Well, Mr. Brown.
Sure. The study is already in front of you. So
Okay.
now the next step would be, for example, if I may use a department that's literally in the audience. So if I were to meet with Public Works, I would say, Public Works, here is the study. But what does that mean for you as a department? Let's set it out. And then if the department looks at those positions, those classifications, those job duties, and if they have any difference of opinion as to where they think they should fall in the study, we would work all that out before it ever came to council as a plan to be approved by you to put in motion. So that's the difference.
So, Mr. Chairman, what exactly is the wording of the motion then?
Sure. So in essence, what Mr. Brown is asking is for us to authorize him to engage, I guess, in substantive discussions with various department heads.
Each of the department heads.
Each of the department heads, including elected officials like the sheriff, the coroner, the solicitor, and so on, regarding the study's findings and to craft, I guess, a compensation plan that is suitable for each department and/or agency. Would that be accurate, Mr. Brown?
That's a good summation.
And report back to council, after those discussions. So would make sense?
Okay, so we're not voting any money tonight. He's just
No.
starting to engage.
The money's
with
already there.
Public
The
heads.
the
Okay,
money's
I got it.
already there.
Okay,
Yes,
I got
money's
it.
already there. Absolutely. Great question, Councilman Weaver. Any additional questions or discussion? All right, there being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham.
Yes.
Pugh.
Yes.
McBride.
Yes.
Livingston. Teratio.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes.
Mackey.
Yes?
English.
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Brown, is reconsideration needed?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
Moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham.
No.
Pugh.
No.
McBride.
No.
Livingston.
No.
Teratio.
No.
Weaver.
No.
Barron.
No.
Walker.
No.
Mackey.
No?
English.
No.
Newton.
No?
Motion fails.
Brown, continue on.
Mr. Chair, the next item on the administrator's report is the Richland County Utilities recommendation. And what we're asking for is the approval of this item, which is to approve the estimated engineering services for the Eastover wastewater treatment plant expansion. And I'll try not to be too cumbersome in my speech, but this item technically has been approved at different levels. This is an item that we approved the department to go and actually get grant funds from the state. The state approved us to receive those funds. Then we came back to you and asked you to approve us to accept the funds. You did that. Now we're coming back to you to say, because of the way your scheduled meetings fall, that in order for us to go through the procurement process to meet the deadline of the grant, that it would be outside of that. The timeline, we would wind up missing our deadline for the grant funds and the engineering services associated with it. So it's under my report asking for you to allow us, by the administrator's nomination, to accept the engineering services estimates here so that we can meet the deadlines of the grant funds, so we won't lose those grant funds for the wastewater treatment plant. So that's a lot to say because these things are continuing process because it's just multiple steps. So not a new program. You've already approved it. We applied for it, we received the funds, you accepted the funds, but the timeline says we have to have these engineering services done in a way that shows that we are significantly complete. And if we don't do that, then we lose the funds that we would have otherwise had access to. So that's why the request is for you to accept the engineering services as listed here, which will allow us to go to a procurement process, which won't include A&F because council won't be meeting, and because of that deadline is the issue. So that's why this is before you and not going through a committee. It's because of the time of year, and we don't want to miss the opportunity to continue to receive these funds.
Questions from the item?
Second.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes?
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Chair, move for reconsideration.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No?
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Next item on the, I'm sorry, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Chair,
Your report.
the next item is a similar item in terms of things that you've approved before. The county entered into a process where it closed down lagoons at some of the schools in Lower Richland because they were literally ponds of, and Bill Davis's quote, poop, okay? That's what it was. It was the wastewater treatment, yes, so that's the lagoons here were replaced by the wastewater treatment extension, we called it the Southeast Water Sewer Extension Plan. That's what this is. So we approved that. Part of that process was that the lagoons had to then be closed out. So the school district, they put in money to do it, which was part of that process. And now that the backbone of the system has been put in and the lagoons, it's time for them to be closed. Now we're coming back to you saying that this process requires us to get people in to do it. In your package, you see that there's an associated cost with that, and the staff recommends County Council approve awarding the lagoon closure project to AAA Utility and Construction LLC in amount of $2,534,449.50. And you need to do it in the summer months or the drier months, because if not, if you just think about that, when it gets cold or rainy, that's not going to be an ideal time to move wastewater out of a lagoon. So that's why it's before you now under the administrator's nomination. And again, this is a continued approval of something that started on one end of the spectrum, and now we're closing down to the end, which was initially to close out those lagoons at those schools. So this will get that stuff out of there, and that's what we're asking for approval for on tonight.
Questions from the body for Mr. Brown? All right, there being none, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve.
Second.
And there's a resounding second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes?
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Chair, move for reconsideration.
Second?
Properly second, any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride, Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No?
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Brown?
Mr. Chair, this last particular item that's in your packet, unfortunately, because of the timing, this is going to happen every year because our year as a county is different than the federal government's year. So this time of year, I'm going to always wind up coming to you, asking you outside of a committee process to do this. So I just want you to know that in advance. We'll say the same thing each year. But to receive Community Development Block Grant, Home Investment Partnership, and Emergency Solution Grant funds, Richland County must submit an annual action plan to the U.S. Housing and Urban Development, which is HUD, each year. The county must also submit a 5-year consolidated plan every 5th year. We recommend approval for the following plans as listed in your packet for submission to U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the purpose of administering the CDBG, again, program, home investment partnership, and the ESG funds. The fiscal year 2023 annual action plan to administer and allocate $1,723,394 in CDBG funds and $941,966 in home funds and $148,000 and $882 in ESG funds for submission to HUD on or before Tuesday, August 15, 2023. And in addition to that, the substantial amendment to the 2022-2026 5-year consolidated plan to incorporate newly awarded ESG funds for submission to HUD on or before Tuesday, August 15, 2023. And so again, the reason why this is not going through a committee is because of the timeline associated with the federal government's calendar versus our calendar. And we have to have that information submitted, as you can see here, on or before August the 15th. And so that's why we're before you now asking for this item under the administrator's nomination. And again, I apologize, but because of when we receive information from the federal government and when our schedule is, this will likely be a situation each year because of the timing.
Second?
Second.
Moved to properly second. Any discussion? You recognize, Ms. McBride.
We get a lot of information. This is one of those documents, and I hadn't read all of this for this term, but usually each year when they come in, I read the document. I love reading documents where, in terms of developing programs and grants, that you actually have sound information that you can base your recommendations on. And this is one of the better documents that I've read, one of the better grants. And this is an instrument, this is a tool that we can use as we look at our housing for other funds using housing development, because it has detailed the first document, and I'm sure that this does, so, has details about why we are selecting programs. It discusses the needs and priorities, and this is the type of information we need when we're determining the needs for Richland County and how our funding is being expended, because it's based on documentation, it's based on input from the citizens. So I just want to commend the staff, because it's a lot of work, and I don't know who was responsible for pulling it together, but each year they do a great job with it. And I think that I would hope that at some point we would have the opportunity to take parts of it and look at that information in our program plan.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. McBride.
Mr. Chair, I'm not sure, did the item, did we get reconsideration on that item?
No, we haven't voted
voted
yet.
yet.
We haven't
Okay,
voted
I'm
yet.
sorry.
Just
I ain't
Ms.
got that far.
McBride, commandeered the discussion.
You know how
Praise.
And I say that in a good sense. All right, any additional discussion or questions? Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
Properly second, any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Mr. Chair, the last item, there should be some information that was on the dais of each member. There was also some information we placed out front for individuals that they came into the chambers. We received a lot of questions in my office and different parts of county administration about the road paving program, and I know that we haven't had a chance to really talk about that in detail. If you would permit me, I just want to kind of cover a few basic questions here and give some responses about those things that I've received questions for, and maybe have you ask any additional questions you may have before that concludes my report. Is that okay with Mr. Chair? Okay. So some of the questions that I got were, is the county going to pave everyone's road, even if people on the road don't want them paved? And the answer is no. The county's program is not designed to pave everyone's road, no matter what. And so part of that discussion, or part of those questions that we received, it seems as though there may have been some information out there that was communicated that the county's intention is to pave every road in Richland County. And that's not the case. That's not what the staff is asking for through this process that we've initiated, and nor is that what anyone has communicated their intent. There's a question as to about the removing of the 25% threshold for denying a road's paving, and why is the county looking at that? And one of the things that the staff was simply trying to do was trying to find a way to reach out to the citizens that lived in those areas, get feedback and input, provide that feedback and input to the council, and then make a determination from there as to what would happen. And so just like today, you as a county council have the ability to affect how the county operates, because I report to you and you make the policy, that won't change. And so in trying to move items forward consistent with just really good governance, that's all that was being attempted. Are all county roads now being paved with funds from the penny? The answer is no. So before the county was paving roads and there was no penny, the county still took action to pave roads. So does the penny play a portion in paving some of the roads? Yes, it does, because there were roads that were included in a referendum for paving. But the county will not be paving all roads using penny funds, and nor has the county always had penny funds to do that. So that's not correct, that the county will be paving roads just using penny funds. So how does the county address the concern of possible increased traffic flow when a dirt road is paved, especially if the road is a shortcut between two streets? But per the county ordinance, the road to be paved cannot interconnect existing streets or serve developable vacant land that will result in the potential of over 400 vehicles on it daily. The road cannot serve existing businesses or vacant land zoned for business use that would generate traffic exceeding 400 vehicles daily, whether that's or truck traffic exceeding 24 vehicles daily. And in general, paving interconnecting roads will better serve the public during the emergencies and road closures. One of the things that we often, I shouldn't say often, it's not a good term to use, one of the concerns that happens from time to time is we get calls about buses, emergency vehicles being not able to pass on roads. So those are other considerations that we're trying to address as a county when we have people who have to respond to address certain issues. So that's really one of the considerations. How's the cost to pave a road determined? There's a formula for that, right? The district dirt road paving funds equals total dirt roads paving funds times district dirt road mileage. The costing is determined based on bid results, and each road is unique in the needs for drainage improvements, but a roadway's design indicates the specific needs of each road. So there's a general formula, but there's no one size fits all, because roads have unique needs based off how they are laid out. A few other things, Mr. Chair, and I'll be done. If road problems such as drainage issues arise after the paving of a dirt road, is the county responsible for fixing those problems? The county maintains roads that are in the county's inventory, the county maintains. So the short answer is yes. So if the county, again, is maintaining a road, then the county is responsible for the continued maintenance of their road. Does the county plan to dramatically increase taxes to fund said paving? There's been no discussions at all about increasing taxes. There are a number of counties, I shouldn't say a number, a few counties this past budget year who increased taxes. Richland County did not. So I'm not sure why that question is being asked, but no. Richland County will use existing revenue sources to fund projects. These revenues have already been set. So we know what the millage rates are, we know what the approved budget rates are, and that's what it is. Is the county paving roads so developers can build more housing? No. Richland County's efforts to provide safe, efficient, and quality transportation are continuous and are not tied to attracting developers to the county. So you being able to drive along a road safely and effectively, kids being able to get on the bus safely and effectively, EMS, emergency service being able to respond to you is just simply about safety of the roads, and it has nothing to do with any sort of development as it relates to this particular issue. So I'm sure there are some other questions that you all might have for me, but in general, those are some of the things that I kept getting and kept receiving, and I want to have an opportunity to share with you that general information associated with some of the road paving information that we provided to County Council through the meetings that we've had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any questions or discussion from the body? Start with Ms. Newton and then Mr. Brown.
And Ms. Barron.
I'm sorry, missed you, Ms. Barron, then Ms. Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Brown, for taking time to address that. I know that there are a lot of concerns about it, and I'm still wading through my emails, so if you haven't received a response about an email that you sent about that, we received quite a bit. So one thing, too, I think is important to reiterate, because there are a lot of concerns that people have that the county is coming for my road, and the county wants to pave my road and isn't going to take into account our input. And I think that one of the things with the proposed change, and there's going to be a modification to this ordinance, I think, when we get to the motion period, is how do we listen to the concerns of our constituents? Because right now, at least in my district, I've run into situations where the majority of the people who live on the road want the road paved, and there might be one person who doesn't, and our ordinance says that you don't listen to all of those other people. And so I think there was also an intent to say, how can we hear the will of the people, so that if the majority of people who live in an area want a road paved, that they can have it paved. But that same logic extends in the reverse. If the people on the road don't want the road paved, the county is not going to pave that road, and that's not what we're trying to do. So just wanted to thank you for giving that information. I know that there are a lot of people who are here to address that, and I've seen some incorrect information floating around about that, and so I think it was important. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Correct would be an understatement, Ms. Newton, as far as what I've seen floating around, but I'm not going to go there tonight. Mr. Branham and then Ms. Barron.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the administrator bringing this up so we could have this conversation, particularly before we got to the open hearing on this topic. And the chair was good enough last meeting to agree to the request to have the public hearing remain open from last meeting to this meeting so that we could hear from more of the interested citizens today. And I'm not trying to debate the issue right now because there's going to be a time for that under item 15C later in the meeting. But I wanted to share with those who are here because of this issue, just as a heads up that, you know, I have referenced in earlier meetings an intention to make a substitute motion so that over 50% of property owners on a given dirt road could prevent paving by submitting a denial letter within 30 days of the mailing of the notice letter. And that'll be a motion that I'll be making at the time in the meeting when that's appropriate, which is, again, under item 15C. And I think we do need to look a little bit at the consent denial letter as far as what it says when the notice letter goes out, just to make sure that there's an adequate description of the potential project. Again, I wanted to share that before the public input period, that's my intention. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Branham. Ms. Barron and then Mr. Pugh.
Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Branham for sharing his intent. And Mr. Brown, thank you for bringing this information to us. What I'm going to say is probably not something I've not said before, and I want to start by saying that I think our communications team has done a fabulous job in communicating things that the county is doing 100% better than what we've ever done before. However, I do feel like this is a topic that needed to have been communicated better with our constituents. This information that we have tonight is, I mean, it probably would have saved people hours of emails that we've received. And I would just like to encourage this body as we move into item 15 to even consider anything that remotely appears to continue to educate and make our constituency base aware of what it is that we're doing. Because as the chair made mention, there's lots of information that's floating around that's incorrect. But we've not, I'll say this, I'm not certain if we've done anything to correct that information, and for council members to have to bear the burden of, getting this information out to the hundreds of emails that we are getting. It seems to be a bit much. This document would be great to have posted on our social media page and on our website. We've talked about frequently asked questions as it relates to the land development code. This is another thing, and I would just like for us to, at some point, adopt some type of way that we do business when we have those hot topics and those pressing issues, that this becomes the model for us to say, okay, this is a hot topic. We need to start creating a frequently asked question sheet somewhere on our social media page, on our Facebook page, so that it becomes a common practice that citizens of Richland County know, okay, hot topic, go to the website. They, and I would just, really want to share that concern, because it takes I'm going to respond to all those emails. I will. I'm going to do my very best. But I believe if I had a link that I could send to them, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. Mr. Pugh?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo the same sentiments as my colleagues. This past week, I had an opportunity to visit a few of my communities that are very, very concerned, terrified of what this communication put in their thought process. And I want to echo the same thing that Ms. Barron just said. I think we need to do a better job of speaking plain language. I think we do a good job of putting out how we have improved things at the county, but just to head off some of this stuff with some of the people in the community, I think this should be the model going forward, as Ms. Barron said, of how we handle things when it comes to hot topics. And again, just speak plain language to everyone. Everybody doesn't speak engineer language. And so, it's very, very important that we meet people where they are, because those are the people that we work for. So thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pugh. No, ma'am. Be inappropriate. Be inappropriate. No, ma'am. Any additional questions or discussion? Mr. Brown, I don't know if this is so much of a question as it is a statement, but I want to kind of, share my understanding of what we're being asked to do here tonight. And certainly, since we're still in the, where this is the administrator's report, if you want to have Mr. Director Maloney chime in, certainly feel free to correct me with respect to my understanding of what was taking place. And I think some context here is pretty important. It's my understanding that when this item came before the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee, which would have been sometime back in May, the concern was that we had roads that had been, that are part of the penny ordinance, which was voted on back in 2012, well before I got on county council. And the citizens of Richland County voted for the penny, and as part of the penny, just wasn't transportation, just wasn't improvement of roads and sidewalks, but also included dirt roads as well. So there are roads that are enumerated in the penny ordinance. Would that be correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And $45 million, if I recall correctly, had been allocated for the pavement of those dirt roads that are enumerated in the penny ordinance. Again, majority of the voters in Richland County had voted for that. It's 2012. We get to 2014, and there's an amendment to the county's roads and highways and bridges ordinance, which is separate from the penny. It's not the same thing, but it's separate. And as part of that amendment, it was the road paving program, again, separate from the penny. And that included the 25% threshold for denying the pavement of a road. And as a result of that, you ended up with a minority of, I guess you can say, residents who could stop the pavement of a road, particularly a road that may have been enumerated in the penny ordinance that was passed in 2010. In essence, you have the minority pretty much overriding the will of the majority for the pavement of roads that have been passed as part of the penny ordinance in 2012. And it's also my understanding that because of that, the $45 million that had been allocated, we're now down to, is it $20 million, right? And the completion rate, I believe, for the roads that have been enumerated in the penny ordinance is 29%. So we have expended more than half the funds for 29% of the roads that are enumerated in the penny ordinance to be paved. In other words, we're actually losing money. And it has a lot to do with you've got a minority that's been able to pretty much override the will of the majority. And we all know the longer it takes to complete a project in construction, those costs go up as well. And so it's my understanding that the reason staff brought this to the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee's attention and ultimately the full council's attention is to say, look, we got an emergency, if you will, on our hands, that we're at a 29% completion rate for the paving of roads that residents voted for overwhelmingly back in 2012. So this is not an effort to pave every road in Richland County, but is to expedite the process and honor the will of the voters for what they voted on back in 2012. It's my understanding there's nothing more than that. It's nothing less than that. And I know I said earlier when Ms. Newton mentioned that you said a false statement that's out there. I think I said that's an understatement, in fact, or incorrect information. I said that's an understatement because we got the media reporting that we intend to pave every road in Richland County. Well, I got news for everybody here tonight. We don't have enough money to pave every road in Richland County. We would have to raise your taxes to pave every road in Richland County. And if your road is not enumerated in the penny ordinance, it will not be impacted by this tonight. So there's not an effort to pave every road in Richland County. The government is not coming to take your road. And in fact, if your road is not listed in the penny ordinance, you really don't have a dog in the fight at this point. And I certainly agree with Councilman Branham's impending motion with the 51%. In essence, that is going to allow us to honor the will of the voters when the penny ordinance was passed in 2012. If we don't do anything, I can tell you Councilwoman English, she's already hearing from constituents about her road, about their roads not getting paved. We voted for the penny and our roads aren't getting paved. What's going on with that? Why did I bother to vote for it? And so here we are trying to do something that honors the will of the voters. We're not raising taxes, and it's as simple as that. Would that be correct, Mr. Brown, as far as my summary, or if Director Maloney wants to correct me, if I misspoke or if I'm off on something, please feel free to correct me.
I think your summary was a good summary, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And I think it's important for people to understand that not every road probably won't get paved that's enumerated in the ordinance because we're now beginning to, we're at 29%. We should be at 60%. And we've expended over 50% of the funds. And that's not because of mismanagement. That's not because of cost overruns or poor estimates at the beginning, but it's had to do with you've had a minority that's been able to slow the process when it comes to getting these roads paved in a timely manner. Okay? Any additional comments or discussion?
I think you covered it all, Mr. Chair.
All right, Ms. Newton?
I apologize for dragging this out. I do have one question where my understanding needs to be updated. So I certainly understand about the penny, the way that the penny, the roads that are in the penny were enumerated specifically and voted on by the voters of Richland County, where a majority of them said, yes, these specific roads. And that we also do maintenance on dirt roads, other roads in Richland County. My understanding was that this proposed ordinance, however, would apply to all roads in Richland County and not just Penny roads if adopted. So could someone clarify that for me?
It does. It would apply to all roads, but that is not the impetus behind.
Correct.
Passing. The impetus is that we're behind on getting the penny roads paid.
Correct. Got it.
And so-
I just wanted to be clear. Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
You recognize Mr.
just
Wright?
want to, correct one thing. He said, all Richland County owned roads, not private roads. We do maintenance for Richland County roads.
Oh, correct.
Okay.
Yes. My constituents are very aware. Yes, I apologize. Only Richland County owned and maintained roads.
Brown, does that conclude your report?
Our report is concluded, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next item on the agenda is item 11, report of the clerk of council. Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Chairman Walker. A reminder that Land Development Code work session has been scheduled for July the 25th from 5 to 6 o'clock. So please mark your calendars on July the 25th from 5 to 6 o'clock. That concludes my report. Thank you, Chairman Walker.
July the 25th from 5 to 6 o'clock? Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk.
July 25th.
25th?
Yes.
Correct. Okay. Any questions or comments regarding the clerk's report? Madam Clerk, that completes your report?
Yes, sir.
All right, next item on the agenda is item 12, report of the chair. And the chair does not have any updates or announcements for the body at this time. Next item on the agenda is item 13, open closed public hearings. Item 13A, authorizing the expansion of the boundaries of the I-77 corridor, regional industrial park, jointly developed with Fairfield County to include certain property located in Richland County, the execution and delivery of a public infrastructure credit agreement to provide for public infrastructure credits to 2019 Bull Street owner, LLC, a company formerly known to the county as Project Urban Renewal, and other related matters. That public hearing is now open. Madam Vice Chair, anyone sign up to speak?
No, Mr. Chair.
All right, that public hearing is now closed. Next item on the agenda is item 13B, authorizing the expansion of the boundaries of the I-77 corridor, regional industrial park, jointly developed with Fairfield County to include certain property located in Richland County, the execution and delivery of a public infrastructure credit agreement to provide for public infrastructure credits to, I want to say Huger, but Hugh Flats, LLC, a company formerly known to the county as Project Wichita, and other related matters. Madam Vice Chair, anyone sign up to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have one individual that signed up to speak this evening, Russell Brown. Russell Brown. Mr. Chair, it appears that Russell Brown is no longer here, or does not want to speak.
Thank you. That public hearing is now closed. Next item on the agenda is item 13C, an ordinance amending the Richland County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 21, Roads, Highways, and Bridges, Section 2120, Road Paving Program, subsection I, so as to remove specific language. That public hearing is now open. Madam Vice Chair, anyone sign up to speak?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have several individuals that have signed up to speak. I do want to start out by saying, because we have so many individuals that have signed up and we have had a very lengthy discussion and FAQs have been passed out, if I call your name and you no longer feel like you need to speak, that is fine. I will move on. You're not obligated. So just know. All right. Cynthia Shepard. And I'm going to call two names. Sorry, I'm going to call two names. One person go this mic, the other person go that mic to try to get through it quicker. So Chris Del Rossi. If you would, state your first and last name as well as your address. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Cynthia Shepard. My address is 200 Back Acres Road in Chapin. Thank y'all for hearing us tonight. I do appreciate the information that you provided for us this evening. I do have a couple questions, though. Something that has been sort of eating at me over these last few weeks is that we didn't really hear about this until almost the third reading. And it would affect us greatly where I live. And so I would have liked to have had this information that was passed out this evening before the first reading, actually before it ever came to you. I think that the staff bringing it to your attention and wanting to get these roads paved is one thing, and I appreciate that. Some people do want their roads paved. For us, where we live is very rural, and for us, our neighborhood is our dirt road. That's where we commune. That's where we walk our animals. The kids play outside. People ride their horses. It's a very different community than downtown Columbia or Blythewood, in some places in Blythewood, or even Irmo and Ballantyne. It's extremely different. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I don't want to take up too much of your time this evening. I know that you are working hard on this issue. I know that you've had a lot of feedback. So I just wanted to say to you, thank you for considering our points of view. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. You would state your first and last name, your address. You have 2 minutes.
Sure.
If you go to the mic, sir, please.
25 Stonehouse Road. My interest here, I'll be brief, as a real estate broker and as a realtor. When I sell property to people, some of them want dirt roads, some of them don't. With that sale, they have certain rights. They have a right to vote not to have their road paved, or they have the right to vote to have their road paved. They understand those rights. What we're doing here is we're taking away those rights. When the federal government takes away a right of yours, you don't get it back. When the state takes away a right of yours, you don't get it back. Now you're voting to take away a right of property that people have purchased. People understand what that right is when they've purchased it, and now don't have that right. It's not going to come back. And that's the point that I want to bring to you, and I want you to think about when you make that vote, because no longer will that be a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Vonda Del Rossi and Stuart Andrews. First and last name, as well as your address. You have 2 minutes.
My name is Vanda Del Rossi. I live at 1125 Stonehouse Road in Chapin. And as Ms. Shepherd mentioned, we live in a community much different than anything you normally run into, such as Blythewood or Rhodes, Irmo, Lexington. We have a sweet, sweet community. Single lane dirt road, raised families there. It is beautiful. I wish she had brought the video so you could see what we're talking about that we don't want to lose. We are begging you to please not remove the 25% resident disapproval requirement for paving and widening these roads in Richland County. We don't want it to turn into a high-speed 2-lane road, and we don't want to give up any of our property for a right-of-way in addition to that. The community which resides on this road and many roads like this want to have a say in what happens to their homes and communities. Please protect the citizens' rights to make their voices heard, and please, please vote no to removing the 25% resident disapproval requirement. We don't want it. And also, when votes are taken, if some people on a road don't respond, that shouldn't be considered that they're voting yes. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Andrews, if you would state your first and last name.
Yes, Stuart
address.
Andrews, 120 Middlefield Lane, Blythewood. Mr. Chairman, members of council, thanks for having the public hearing and soliciting the input. I represent a group of homeowners, property owners in the Blythewood area. Persimmon Fork Road, in particular, has been a picturesque dirt road for 40 or 50 years. Many people in our community, in fact, 11 different home and property owners have horse farms that are specifically intended for that purpose. And Persimmon Fork Road actually is the primary thoroughfare for the network of horse trails and horse communities in which folks use it regularly. And many of the owners have informed me that their easements go to the center of the road. And so, in fact, it is their private property on which they have provided access to other horse riders, guests, and neighboring owners. And the safety factor I'd ask you to consider and take into account. In fact, Mr. Pugh met with 8 or 10 individuals at some of the barns in the community and had an opportunity to see these firsthand. Later this year, we would like to suggest the possibility of council considering even, and possibly first through the zoning board, an opportunity to create a zoning district that recognizes the principal use of communities for horse farm purposes. And so we support, actually, your proposal, Mr. Brown, for a 51% standard. We believe that's just democracy at work, and we appreciate your interest in that and support for that consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bridget Craver, Susan Grosslight.
Hey there, I'm Bridget Craver. I live at 1024 Bookie Richardson Road in Chapin, and I learned about this when I came because they were trying to put the neighborhood at the end of our road. So I've been to more meetings than I've ever been and been involved, but I just want to express our concern. We live on a dirt road. We have horses. We are under the same thing. We have a 10-foot barrier, and we own halfway into the road. And at the last meeting, we learned that they're going to put a roundabout at the end of our road. So why is there going to be a roundabout to come into a dirt road? It's just things like that that have us questioning and a little worried about what's going to happen. And we just want the homeowners to have a choice. There's 6 of us on the road. All of us currently want the road to remain the same. But there's a possibility of a neighborhood coming in. What if the neighborhood comes in and they want it paved? So what happens there? I mean, they're saying that entrance would come out on Mount Vernon. So there's still a lot of unknowns for us, even with all this. And I appreciate you hearing us. We just want you to hear where we're coming from and what's going on. If it were to come, we own halfway into the road, so that's I don't know, we would lose all our trees that block the pastures and the things. And we're in a community by a school, so if that was taken down, you're gonna have a freeway going by in front of our house because it would become a cut-through road. So what would happen there? You know, there's houses for Westcott Ridge. If I were in that neighborhood, you would have a car in your house pretty much if somebody had a wreck. So there's a lot of things to think about. I think we just want to know what's going on. That's where it is. We know things are going to change and develop, but let the homeowners have a choice in that. And then, you know, what's the rush? Can we study it and make sure?
At your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Grosslight, you have state your first and last name as well as your address. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, Susan Grosslight. I live at 335 Persimmon Fork Road, Blythewood. And I want to thank Mr. Pugh for coming out. Last week I missed you, but I appreciate your visit. And, you know, we feel the same as a lot of the speakers, but one of my biggest concerns is we went through this same thing, I'm not sure the year, maybe 2010 or 12, when those letters came out, the 25%. But the way the letter was written, we didn't know what it meant. So we had to get everybody in our road to sign a petition. And we sent it to Mr. Livingston, you might remember. We sent it to everybody on county council and said, do not pave our road. Put us at the bottom of the list. We don't ever want it paved. So when we see this come out as a document and we hear every road should be paved, our antennas go up, our faces turn red, and we say, no, that's not what we want. So having an ordinance that clearly states what we can expect and anticipate in the future. Again, development's going to happen, but we don't want that kind of development in our area because it's a horse area. Same concerns as a lot of people. Our beautiful Canopy Road would disappear. There'd be a big bridge. There'd be a highway. We're not interested. So we would appreciate your clarification in whatever ordinance to allow us to make our decision about our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ken Grosslight, and then this is a front and back sheet, so I'm not sure if folks signed up, if they knew what they were signing up for, but Terry Rowell, are you signing up for roads? Thank you. And then Terry, are you signing up for roads, or did you mean to sign up for the Mungo Homes? Okay, great. Yeah, but it was on the back side. It's fine. So I'm going to read everybody that signed up on the Mungo Homes in case you signed up on the wrong sheet and you meant to sign up for paving. Okay. All right, so Terry and then Raymond LaPointe. All right. First and last name, address, and you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Terry Rowell, 3635 Kennerly Road, Irmo, South Carolina. First of all, I do want to thank you. You made some really good points about having pre-information. It certainly would have saved me a lot of time It would have also saved me a lot of high blood pressure. I'm going to request that you say leave the 25% as is, and this is my reasoning. I agree that usually majority rules, but in those cases, and I'm just going to give you a crazy example. It's like, okay, are we going to order the lemon cake or the apple pie? But in this case, people are actually losing something. They're losing part of their property that they may not want to lose. It's being taken for right-of-way. It also then allows utilities and things like that to come in on our roads that we may not want. The 25% rule has worked for a long time, and I think it should stay that way. And I agree that there are people that are not going to get their roads paved, but you need to take into consideration you are taking things from people. Then I would like to speak about the consent letter. 30 days is not enough. I sent my concealed weapon permit into SLED. I don't know how long it took it to get there, but it took them 11 days, the mail, 11 days to get it back. So if it took 11 days to get there, 11 days back, I was on vacation, guess what? I missed my consent letter. I was a teacher. A lot of times when people read things, they don't read the whole thing. And what I see people doing is opening up this letter and seeing, you want your road paved? Don't want your road paved? Well, I don't want my paved. I'm going to 86 it. In the trash can it goes. You're never going to hear back from me, because I think by not replying, it means I'm denying it. So I'm also going to ask that a no reply or a late letter be a, I don't want it done. And then you can go from there to contact those people.
That is your time.
One more good point.
Thank you. If you would, sir, state your first and last name, address. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Raymond LaPointe. I live at 3635 Kimberly Road, Irmo, South Carolina. First thing I'd like to say is some of the information and some of the comments made by the council members were right on. I think a lot of this could have been avoided if it had been more clarified and the information had been put out. But even some of the information that was put out was not clear. The letter of consent does not really explain what's going to happen to that road. That if you've got a private road and we come in and say, okay, we want it paved, we're going to give up 50 feet from center line on both sides of that road of property. It doesn't say that. And I think that's a big consideration that has to be thought about by the constituent before they give up property that's been in their family for years and years and years. But I think, like you had said, clarity, speaking common language, just explaining up front solves a lot of that issues. There was a comment earlier about we're only paving public roads, public-owned Richland County roads. But there's some issue there where Richland County doesn't know what road is theirs and what's not. Road we live on, we won't get a notice because our mailing address is on a different road. But the whole back of our property is on that dirt road. Well, we won't get a say in it because technically we're not an address on that road. So how do we go about that for people who have that situation? How do we make sure they're getting input? Because it does affect our property, 40 acres. But it's on dirt road, but our driveway is on Kennerly. So we would not receive a notice that we're going to have to be paved. So that's something that has to be thought about before when we send out these notices also. The last thing is, if we're only doing county roads, we had an issue on our road just recently.
That's your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mike Ritchie. And then, I'm sorry, last name Blackwell. Thank you. First and last name, address, you have 2 minutes.
Mike Ritchie, 100 Backacre Road, and that's Chapin, and it's a dirt road, and I sure would like for y'all to keep it a dirt road too. And with what was said earlier about I've been seeing a lot of media posts, Facebook posts, and even on the news, it's got me scared to death. So I hope y'all can figure out a way to keep everybody happy and keep dirt roads dirt in Richland County. Thank you.
Thank you. First and last name, address, you have 2 minutes.
I am Mike in Blackwell. I live at 4600 Old Leesburg Road, dirt. And I am so confused. This is just blowing my mind. I still don't know exactly what you guys are voting for. So I'm going to read what I had. I'll leave a little bit of it out. But I heard on the news that this will probably be the coolest summer for the rest of our lives. From Leesburg Road to my driveway, about a 1-minute drive, the temperature drops 10 degrees. It's one of the biggest benefits of living on my dirt road, along with no traffic, no exhaust, no noise, and no road in my front yard on my doorstep. That's what is great about greenways, or one of the things that's great about greenways. And a dirt road is a natural greenway. So basically, you want to spend money to destroy a natural greenway by paving a dirt road, while at the same time you're spending money to build greenways elsewhere. Not logical. I watched the Zoom meeting yesterday for the penny tax. Do I understand correctly that Mr. Eptings, I don't know how to pronounce it, his comment that you're taking away our right to have a say in what happens on our dirt roads because it's making his life difficult? Can he, Mr. Maloney, and Richland County government please think about how difficult this is for the community whom you serve, who pays your salary and contributes to the penny tax?
That is your time. Thank you. Next, we have Sarah.
Don't take away our vote.
Next, we have Sarah Major and Jennifer Mankey. Thank you. Before you get started, just a reminder, during your speech, please refrain from using direct names of staff or council members. Please state your first and last name. You have 2 minutes to speak and provide your address.
My name is Sarah Major. I live at 148 Clamp Road in Blythewood. I don't know why people think Blythewood is really developed, because it's not. I live on a dirt road. I live on the last dirt road next to Fairfield County. And everybody on the street wants the dirt road to remain a dirt road. Every single person. In order to make it not a dirt road, you're going to have to cut down thousands of trees in addition to everything else for something that there's not one person on the road who wants it. That's all I have to say. I hope that y'all will listen to the people whose houses are actually on the roads that y'all are talking about. We don't want them paved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Mankey. I live at 320 Clearview Drive, Hopkins, South Carolina. This is a continuum. It is not just for today. For me, this began with the sewer project, and today part of the sewer project is the wastewater treatment expansion in Eastover, because we lost that one. The reason we fought it at the time was because we were trying to control development in a beautiful part of Richland County, and also for the farmers. And today, I was at DHEC, and I took a picture on Bull Street, and I took a picture of my car in the shade of a beautiful magnolia. It was cool and green and shady, which was a miracle to me that that tree was still there, because development does happen rather roughly, generally. I also want to say that I don't live on a dirt road, but people around me do, and through my time with the sewer project, I came to love the people of Lower Richland County very much, especially the older people. And although you say this will not raise taxes, it will eventually, because of development that will follow the paving of the roads. the dirt roads. So I just want to say the continuum doesn't end with this decision. It's part of the larger decision. And I hope that you will continue to consider the tourism plan and the older people that live in Lower Richland County who need to be protected. And the moment that we had of thought at the beginning of our meeting tonight made me realize that I was entrusted by those people who no longer come creeping up to the podium. They've gotten older since the sewer project, and they are entrusting me to help them keep their taxes low, keep their rural Lower Richland County. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, that concludes all individuals that have signed up to speak this evening.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. That public hearing is now closed. Next item on the agenda is item 13D, authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement by and between Richland County, South Carolina, and Clayton Properties Group, Inc., doing business as Mungo Homes, formerly known to the county as Project Foundation, to provide for payment of a fee in lieu of taxes, authorizing certain infrastructure credits, and other related matters. That public hearing is now open. Madam Vice Chair, anyone sign up to speak?
No, Mr. Chair.
That public hearing is now closed. Next item on the agenda is item 14, approval of consent items. Item 14A, you recognize Ms. Newton.
Mr. Chair, move to approve items 14A and B.
Second.
And moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Brown, do we know if item 14A needs to be reconsidered? It says a portion of third reading, but I don't know, does that need to be reconsidered? Or we
Mr.
can?
Chair, I would just say based on the next time the council is scheduled to meet, it might be good for a reconsideration, sir.
Move to reconsider?
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham, Pugh,
No.
McBride, Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Next item on the agenda is item 15A, third reading items. 15A, authorizing the expansion of the boundaries of the I-77 Corridor Regional Industrial Park, jointly developed with Fairfield County to include certain property located in Richland County, the execution and delivery of a public infrastructure credit agreement to provide for public infrastructure credits to 2019 Bull Street Owner LLC, a company formerly known to the county as Project Urban Renewal, and other related matters. At this time, I entertain a motion.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I move for reconsideration, item 15A.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Next item on the agenda, item 15B, authorizing the expansion of the boundaries of the I-77 Corridor Regional Industrial Park, jointly developed with Fairfield County to include certain property located in Richland County, the execution and delivery of a public infrastructure credit agreement to provide for public infrastructure credits to Hughie Flats LLC, a company formerly known to the county as Project Wichita, and other related matters. I entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English, Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
And a motion for reconsideration.
So
Move to
moved, Mr. Chair.
reconsider?
It's
Second.
been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Next item on the agenda is item 15C, proposed Chapter 21 Dirt Road Paving Ordinance Amendment, an ordinance amending the Richland County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 21, Roads, Highways, and Bridges, Section 21-20, Road Paving Program, subsection I, so as to remove specific language. I entertain a motion. Second.
Second.
Discussion. It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer a substitute motion.
You recognize Councilman Branham?
Thank you. The substitute motion would be to amend ordinance section 21-20 I-4 to replace the number 25. I believe that's the last sentence of that paragraph to say 51%.
Substitute motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion on the substitute motion? You recognize Ms. Newton? And to Ms. Newton, Ms. English, and then Ms. Barron.
And I'll defer to Ms. English because she hasn't spoken on this yet, and we have many of the same concerns.
One of the things I just wanted to go on record and say is the Lower Richland area, I won't say we were 100% responsible, but they really pushed this penny tax because of the dirt roads in that area. And if you look at the topography of the Lower Richland area, all the water drains down to that particular area. When the 2015 flood hit, that was the hardest area hit in Richland County. We have not recovered from that yet. We've lost bridges. There were a lot of roads that were washed out, a lot of train tracks that were washed out. It was just a lot of stuff. We have ambulances and fire trucks that are unable to come down or have any access because those roads are in terrible conditions. So we're working really hard in the Lower Richland area to make sure that these roads are accessible and those seniors and those that are disabled are able to have those services that are needed. And that's why they push so hard for this ordinance to be passed, because we do need, in the Lower Richland area, all of our needs are different, but in the Lower Richland area, for those roads to be paved. And like many of you, all of the roads don't have to be paved, but there are a lot that do need to be paved. And I just wanted different ones to understand that we don't want to take away anybody's rights at all, but the need in my area is a lot different than the needs in other areas. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You, Ms. Newton, do I come back to you and then Ms. Barron, or?
We're both wearing red. You can pick whichever. Pick
would you
Ms.
put me
Barron.
in that
I'm so sorry.
position?
Ms. Barron. I yield to Ms. Barron.
All right, Ms. Barron.
Hey, I just have a couple of questions, and these questions were raised based upon the comments that were made. And so, Mr. Brown, whoever's most appropriate to answer them, but it was stated several times that that our rights as citizens are being taken away. And it's if I'm understanding what is being said when they say their rights are being taken away, they don't necessarily have a say in whether or not their road could be paved. So I think I'll make a statement and then we'll kind of figure out if there's a question or not. Because as I'm looking at my notes, they kind of just go together. And so it's my understanding that based upon the motion that we have on the floor at this point, that the rights are not being taken away. We're putting in what I'd like to say a majority rule vote. And so with this majority rule, you have the rights are still there. It just says that the majority of the people on this particular road has said they would like this road paved. So I don't know if you can explain to me because I mean, you can't really speak for the citizens, but where are we getting this rights being taken away? I don't see that. I don't see that in any of the writing And so I think that we owe it to people because it was a resounding statement that we need to explain, what we are exactly doing when we pass this motion. What does that look like? Are your rights being taken away? Does this automatically mean there was something else that was stated? Does it automatically mean that when we pave your road, now your road was a single lane road and it goes to 2 lanes? What, can you help me understand? Because I want people to realize what it is we are doing and what we're not doing, just based on those 2 areas, if you could.
Ms. Barron,
Yes.
before Mr. Brown answers that question, or has someone on staff answer that question, the ordinance remains the same. People like the ordinance. What they don't like is changing the number from a minority being able to decline a road getting paved to it going to a majority. That's it. There's nothing else in this ordinance that changes. Whether or not a road is going to be a 2-lane road, 3-lane road, 4-lane road, none of that's in here. The ordinance itself remains the same, with the exception of the threshold for determining if the road gets paved or not. That's it.
And that's fine. I'm glad. I just wanted someone to officially state that because it was common. We all were sitting here and we heard the same thing. And so I don't want people to walk away with that same thought. If we say 51%, it will take 51% for this road to be paved, and then they still think that we're coming with a 2-lane road and their rights are being taken away and all those things. So that is sufficient for me. I just needed it to go on the record as to what we are doing.
Right, that's what we're doing.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Unfortunately, that's not what the media reported, but that's, this is not taking away anyone's rights. The ordinance remains the same. It's just that amendment which has been suggested by Councilman Brown.
Mr. Chair, I know Ms. Newton has discovered this is a follow-up, just
Go
briefly
ahead.
on the explanation. I imagine that those comments were coming from the original draft of the motion, which didn't move the threshold. It eliminated the threshold altogether. So the discussion about what does my substitute motion mean, it is a very different meaning from what the original draft ordinance was. And I'll comment more about it later, but I know Ms. Newton's got discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Brad.
Just keep in mind, too, Ms. Barron, at no point was it ever communicated, even with the original, I guess, change or suggestion by staff that we were paving all roads in Richland County. That's never been part of the discussion.
And I understand, and I stand with you all on that. I just wanted us to clearly articulate what it is that we're doing, especially after the number of comments that came. Sure. So I totally understand you.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Newton?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Wright, then Ms. Newton.
I'm sorry, Ms. Newton, but it's kind of in response to Ms. Barron's question, and this is just basically an example. The way the current ordinance stands is basically the equivalent of there are 11 members of council. In order to pass, 3 people can stop anything from getting passed. So that's what the current equivalent is. So what this does, especially with Mr. Branham's amendment, means that it will be majority rule, not 3 people get their way versus the majority.
Newton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Barron, for clarifying it. And even though you just did it, I can't underline it enough just because I still have, 500 emails to reply to. A lot of people have asked, they've said, we want a right to vote on this. And I just want to be clear that you do retain a right to vote on this. And so for every person who has said, no one on my road wants the road to be paved, when those people vote no, the road will not be paved. Nothing in this is taking away people's right. And then I guess the other thing I want to acknowledge, representing Lower Richland as well, is there are people that I have to look in the eye every month at neighborhood meetings who say, my road is supposed to be paved, it's on a list, I want it paved, why isn't it being paved? And I have to go to them and say, we don't actually have the money. We're working through. So I think that sometimes people think that their neck of the wood represents every neck of the wood in a large area. And what we're asking, and I support Mr. Branham's motion, is to let people be able to speak. And so I know that in terms of the calls I get, 30 to 1 from people who live in rural parts of my community, I get calls from constituents because they want their roads paved. And those people should have their voices heard, just like the people who don't want their roads paved. And so that's what part of this process is. That said, listening to some of the comments that we've heard today, I think we're correct. The only thing that this ordinance is proposing to change is the threshold. But it seems to me like there are other things in this process that need to be changed. For example, as we look at the consent denial process, I think that there are real questions about how clear is that. I will be frank and say I have received at least one time a communication from the county that was not clear to me as a person who serves on Richland County Council. And if I can get a communication that's not clear to me, I think it's reasonable that someone else might. And then I have questions about, and I'm notorious for ignoring mail, which is why my husband has to process it. But if you get this piece of mail, it sounds to me like if you don't respond, it's considered yes. And I think that it might be a better process to have yes means yes, as opposed to no comment means yes. And so I don't know how it stands with this motion, if that would be, appropriate to have a friendly amendment to the substitute motion, that we look at that process, if it's something that we need to do separately. But I feel like, while I certainly want, again, every homeowner should vote on if they want their road to be paved, period, 100%, and that's what we're all saying, I think that that doesn't mean that we can't make parts of this process better, and it sounds to me like we need to do that. So that is my comment. If others in the body are open, if I'm procedurally allowed to offer a friendly amendment to that motion, I'm happy to do it separately. But apart from the number, I think that this has to be clearer. I think that as we talk about communication, I think it would be helpful for some people to see in advance what does this letter look like, and just see how can we make this better and clear, not just so that our constituents have the right to vote, but that when they hear from us, they understand how to do it, and it's simple.
Weaver.
Chairman, I just want to understand. A couple of the speakers said things like the 30 days, it couldn't get back there in 30 days. That's a good point. So if this motion fails tonight, what happens? Does it go back to the drawing board and we start all over? Because it seems like some of these protections for these road owners are not in there.
What happens is, if the motion fails tonight, we go back to status quo, which means we go back to a process whereby we are already behind on paving dirt roads for the Penny program. 29% completion rate, and we've expended over 50% of the funds because we've been not able to pave these roads at the pace that is necessary, to meet or satisfy the mandate in the Penny ordinance that voters voted for overwhelmingly back in 2012. So that's where we go back to.
But would it give us, Mr. Chairman, a chance for staff to maybe rework some of these concerns in the ordinance, or that's not in consideration?
Well, if it gets voted down tonight, someone would have to make a motion for it to come back up again. I guess the challenge for me, Councilman Weaver, and again, this is just my stance. No one complained, or I'm not aware of any complaints about this ordinance. No one complained about the consent denial process, right? There were no complaints about the 30-day turnaround until we started talking about making the ordinance more consistent with democratic rule, which is going from a minority to a majority. Now, Mr. Brown or Director Maloney, they could feel free to correct me, but I'm not aware of this deluge of complaints coming in about the consent denial process. This is popping up now because there are reservations about going from a minority being able to dictate if a road gets paved to a majority making being able to make that decision, which again is consistent with democratic principles. So nothing we're doing here tonight is tantamount to a taking. Nothing we're doing here tonight is anti-democratic. So that's the challenge for me. And for folks who are dissatisfied with the number, I don't think we can ever get an ordinance that's going to be perfect.
That I would agree with, Mr. Chairman.
You recognize, Mr. Livingston.
Mr. Chair, I think the item before us tonight is whether or not we want to change that percentage from 25 to 51%. I think that's what's before us. But I think if any other council member at any other time can easily come before this council or put a motion in place to change anything that's in the ordinance. But what's before us now is this threshold. It doesn't stop us from changing anything else in the ordinance. And I would argue and say that, I have confidence that our administrative and staff sitting listening to those comments, they'll make suggestions and changes in the ordinance. So I think that's going to come before us in that, with no question. But what's before us now is just to move forward with that percentage threshold.
Mr. Wright?
Yes, and as Mr. Livingston said, whether it is voted up or down, none of this other stuff changes. The only thing before you is the percentage. The other stuff is not before you. If you vote for it, the consent denial, the 30 days stay the same. If you vote against it, the consent denial, the 30 days stay the same. But at any other point, whether you vote it up or vote it down, it can come back before you to change whatever you think needs to be changed. But tonight, what's before you is the percentage.
And I'm also thinking about all those roads out there that have not been paved that are in the penny ordinance. And again, we're behind 29%. We ought to be closer to 60%, as been communicated to me by Mr. Brown and his staff. And that is where my mind is right now, honoring the will of the voters back from 2012. You recognize Ms. Newton?
Just before was Mr. Branham, did you have your chance? I'm sorry.
I hadn't asked to be recognized
okay.
yet, but I still intend to.
Okay, sorry. So as a follow-up question for you, and I hear you, if we vote no tonight, that the consent denial process remains the same, the 30 days remains the same, et cetera. My question for you is that particular process, is that essentially a procedure that we can work with staff and provide feedback on, and they can incorporate citizens' feedback to give us a proposal? Or is that something that we need to dictate in the motion, in which case by motion and ordinance, in which case, I would have to come back with a specific motion to modify the ordinance about consent denial?
Well, at any point in any ordinance, as the elected officials, you can change any ordinance, basically. But at this point, tonight, what's been noticed to the public is regarding the percentage. So that's what, is before you tonight.
And I don't think I asked my question clearly. So there are things that we vote on by ordinance where we have thou shalt, but then there's a day-to-day operation that the staff does where we don't get into the weeds at that level. And so I'm asking if the consent denial process is something that's elevated to the ordinance level that has to come back with 3 readings and a public hearing.
That's in the ordinance.
Okay.
Yes.
Then I shall come back.
I know Mr. Weaver. Mr. Branham?
Thank you. So this, just for public, I'm trying to talk high level, condensed version of what happened here. This ordinance didn't come up through anybody on county council. It came up through the staff, and I don't infer any ill intent to anybody on the staff as it relates to why did they request our review here. And I think we heard from the administrator tonight that part of it was that he just wanted to make sure that a conversation was had as to this issue because they were balancing 2 different, competing forces or priorities. One being this list that was a set list of roads that would potentially be paved under the penny tax against the fact that there is a right for a certain percentage of homeowners on a dirt road to be able to prohibit or prevent the paving of that road. And I've talked about this in meetings past, but people have good reasons not to want their road to be paved. And we've heard them. I understand them. I can relate to them. Again, I grew up on a dirt road. And the original motion wasn't just moving the threshold, at which a road could be prevented from being paved by right. The original motion eliminated the right altogether. So again, I understand that's where a lot of the residents were saying you're taking a right away from us. That's the reason for my substitute motion. And I understand a lot of people don't want any change at all, but we have heard the reasoning for the competing interests that are at play in this analysis here. And I'm gonna tell y'all, just whoever's listening to me, who's wishing like Councilman Branham was just voting no altogether, that the political will, as I understand it on this council, it is not for this to get shot down completely. So I've proposed this compromise substitute motion. It's not because I really want it to be moved. It's because I believe that that's what we can get through this county council at this time. It was voted down, in years past, the proposal to move the threshold, but this is a different county council. And that's how I understand the will of this council to be right now is I want to see the principle of majority rule instituted when it comes to whether dirt roads get paved or not. I will acknowledge that of the, let's just say 100 people I've heard from specifically on this ordinance, 99 of them were against it altogether. There was one lady super excited that her road might get paved because of this ordinance change, and bless her, maybe it'll get done. But I do recognize the fact that the principle of majority rule is a foundational principle of American government, and so it makes sense to me that might be where the threshold is. I definitely want to see in the execution of the ordinance that staff provides as clear as possible a consent denial letter that explains the proposed project. And again, my motion is to change literally just one number in the ordinance. It's not to change any of the other provisions that are there. As the ordinance is currently written, it says that, it can be stopped by right if 25% of the people reject it. The way it's being administered right now is that, and I believe I'm right in saying this, they're seeking affirmative consents. And if they can't get up to that 75% threshold, they're holding off on paving. If they continue to administer this program or this ordinance in the same way, that would continue to be the case if they continue to administer it the same way. So I appreciate other council people who have commented that we need to maybe take a closer look at the consent denial letter itself and the process. And I hope that we will exercise the commitment to that to work it all the way through. So that's the reasoning for my motion. And I think that's everything I've got right now, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Livingston.
Your call for the question.
I actually had something to add, but you've already called for the question. But I thought it was going to be important because there were some things said with the media here that leaves me a little troubled.
I'm going to call for the question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Livingston. I promised to be brief. Firstly, this item did not develop in a vacuum. Staff did not willy-nilly just woke up on the wrong side of bed one day and decided that it wanted to do something about dirt roads in Richland County. I thought I said, or maybe I didn't make myself clear when I spoke on this matter earlier, but this was brought to council's attention via the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee before this even got to full council. We have committees here at County Council, and before items make their way before full council, they typically come through a committee. And Director Maloney, doing what your taxpayer dollars pay him to do, which is to come in here and preside over the Department of Public Works, which includes the Transportation Department, discovered that we were grossly behind on getting roads paved and that we were losing taxpayer dollars. And I'm going to say it again. $45 million was allocated for paving dirt roads in Richland County. More than half of that has been expended, and only 29% of the roads have been paved. And if he were to sit on that information and not share it with County Council, that would be a dereliction of duty. So there's nothing political about what's going on here tonight. There's no political will. If there is any political will, it's the will to do the right thing. and honor the will of the voters when they passed the penny ordinance in 2012 and to protect your taxpayer dollars. There's no effort to take your property away from you. That is not what is happening here tonight. And so some comments were made, at least to me, seem to cast aspersions somewhat on what this council is doing here tonight. We're trying to protect your taxpayer dollars and honor the will of the voters. It's as simple as that. And Director Maloney, I appreciate you bringing this to council's attention. We're bringing it to the Transportation Ad Hoc Committee's attention so council can actually do something about it. Because if all those funds were depleted with only, say, 30% of the roads complete, we would have to answer to the voters and explain to them why we did not pave the roads that voters voted on that are enumerated in the penny ordinance, why those roads didn't get paved. And so this is an effort to correct course. Nothing more, nothing less. There's nothing partisan about this decision tonight. If there's any political will, it's simply a will to honor what the voters asked us for. Nothing more, nothing less. And with that, Mr. Livingston, you can call for the question.
Mr. Chair, may I be recognized?
Quickly.
I just wanted to respond. I was the only one who used the term political will tonight. I did not mean to infer there was any partisanship here or that there was anything nefarious whatsoever. That was simply a reference to my understanding of my colleagues' positions on this matter and how they would vote on it, not that there was a partisan scheme afoot. Thank you.
It's not the way the media will report it, Councilman Bradham. The leaders must be mindful about semantics. Mr. Livingston.
Thank you.
Mr. Call for the question on this matter.
Madam Clerk.
Branham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Reconsideration required.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
It's moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk.
Pugh,
No.
Branham, McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Next item on the agenda is item 4D. I'm sorry, not 4D, 15D, authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes agreement by and between Richland County Government, South Carolina, and Clayton Properties Group, Inc., doing business as Mungo Homes, formerly known to the county as Project Foundation, to provide for payment of a fee in lieu of taxes, authorizing certain infrastructure credits and other related matters. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Branham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Entertain a motion for reconsideration.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
Been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk.
Branham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Next item on the agenda is item 16, second reading item 16A, authorizing the execution, delivery of a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreement by and between Richland County, South Carolina, and Vista Depot Holding LLC, among other of its affiliates, to provide for payment of a fee in lieu of taxes, authorizing certain infrastructure credits and other related matters. Entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Branham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 16B, authorizing the execution and delivery of a one or more fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreements by and between Richland County, South Carolina, and Project Growth to provide for payment of a fee in lieu of taxes, authorizing certain infrastructure credits and other related matters. I entertain a motion.
Move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Move to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Next item on the agenda is item 17, report of the Economic Development Committee. Mr. Livingston, you're recognized.
Chair, item 17A, committing to negotiate a fee in lieu of ad valorem taxes and incentive agreement between Richland County, South Carolina, and Vista Depot Holdings, LLC, among other of its affiliates, identifying the project and other matters related thereof. The committee's recommendation was for approval.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of the committee. Any questions or discussion? Ms. Teratio, you recognized.
You. I should be asked this by now. So we just gave second reading to the execution and delivery for Vista Depot Holding, and now we have, is this a new negotiation? And
Livingston?
No, a resolution is just simply formally identifying the project. It's not an agreement, and that's with all the projects.
okay, and so we didn't do this piece of it for first reading. Okay,
It's always separate from the agreement.
okay.
On all the projects.
Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional questions or discussion? Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
I move reconsideration of the resolution to do some agreement.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Livingston, that completes your report.
Yes, that completes, what do you know, even committee, Mr. Chair.
Livingston, next on the agenda, item 18, report of the Rules and Appointments Committee. That would be given by the Honorable Gretchen Barron. Ms. Barron, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today, our committee conducted interviews for the Employee Grievance Committee. It was brought to our attention through our Director of HR that we had several grievances that need to have been heard by the committee. However, the committee was unable to meet due to some of the committee members working in the departments that we need to hear grievances for. So given that, we did also have 2 vacancies. So we had to do another advertisement in which we got overwhelming responses. And I will just take this opportunity to say, Mr. Brown, we have some stellar individuals that came forward that work here at the county. And it was a pleasure to be able to speak with them on this afternoon. And so we also will be making recommendation for 2 member vacancies and 4 alternates. What this will allow, these alternates will allow for, if there is some conflict where a member is working in a department where they're hearing a grievance, then we have a diversified pool of alternates that we can pull from, and then this committee can continue to meet. So it is the recommendation of the committee to appoint for the members of the actual committee, Kevin Bland, which is 18A5, and Shep Headley, which is 18A11 for the members.
Heard the recommendation of the committee. Any questions or discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Motion approved.
And one other thing, as far as the alternates are concerned, we would like to make a recommendation to appoint 18A6, Kenneth Kinney, 18A15, Keisha Bell, 18A13, Tamika Barzak, and 18A9, Clarissa Dickerson.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of the committee. Any questions or discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride. Yes. Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Aaron, is reconsideration needed for any of these items?
Yes, sir, please.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston, Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Aaron, that concludes the report of the Rules and Appointments Committee.
We do have one further item that we'd like to discuss or to share with the body, just as a means of information. During this process, we did learn that we do have some discrepancies in our handbook. And so in our handbook, a quorum is 5 for this particular committee, but by law, it is 4. There are also some additional revisions for this committee that will come before the body through Mr. Brown, but I did want to bring this to your attention now, so when you see it again, you'll already know that this is something that we were made aware in our committee meeting in executive session through the attorney. That does conclude my report, sir.
All right, thank you, Ms. Barron. Our next item on the agenda is item 19, report of the Coronavirus Ad Hoc Committee. That would be given by the Honorable Gretchen Barron. And Ms. Barron, before you get into your report, I want to go on record as saying that I am a board member of the Lower Richland Alumni, Foundation, and I believe there are a couple items on the agenda, at least on this part of the agenda, with respect to the report of the Coronavirus Ad Hoc Committee, which would require my recusal. So at this point, Ms. Mankey, I'm just going to turn the meeting over to you to preside over.
Got it.
Portion, okay, and I'm going to step out.
Ms. Barron, you are recognized.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to kind of tee things up, over the past months, we have been, the Coronavirus Ad Hoc Committee has been meeting to make final awards to our ARPA applications that we had set aside $14 million for nonprofits and small businesses to be awarded through our ARPA dollars. We met a couple of weeks ago and have recommendations for 3 categories that we would like to bring before the body today. The first item is for the education assistance, and that is to fund applicants, and they are as follows: Richland County, or the Richland Library at $64,000, the Lower Richland Alumni Foundation at $155,931.75. The Lynn Brown Inspires Young CEOs and Leaders of Tomorrow at $50,000. SC Thrive at $170,740. Planned Parenthood South Atlantic for $100,000. United Way of the Midlands for $200,000, and the Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands for $182,250. All of these amounts are up to amounts, and they all do pinned desk reviews. This is the recommendation for the education assistance pot of money.
Thank you, Ms. Barron.
So that is a recommendation that we are bringing before to be voted on.
And that is for 19A2. So you would like to do them one at a time? Is that what you're saying?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Question, discussion? Hear none. A recommendation from the committee doesn't require a second. Madam Clerk, would you call the vote?
No.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston, Teratio, Weaver,
No.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker, Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Please, Mr. Ratio, are you participating?
This is workforce training.
This is education
Oh,
assistance.
Education assistant.
I have to recuse myself for this one.
Newton,
Sorry, I thought you were voting on workforce where I recused myself. Could you repeat the motion? I apologize. I thought I was stepping out appropriately, but we changed the order.
The committee recommendation is starting out with 19A2, education assistance. Ms. Barron has stated the recommendation. We have called for the vote. Everyone has voted. Ms. Teratio has recused herself. Ms. Newton.
Yeah, sorry, I guess I'll vote no. What was the
The motion
Committee's
is as it
recommendation.
came out of committee.
Oh, sorry, thank you. I'll vote yes.
motion passes.
Ms. Barron, you're recognized.
Thank you. And so we're clear on the order. I'm following the order that is in our handout in the supplemental document. So the next category will be food insecurity. And the recommendation for the committee is to fund applicants Palmetto AIDS Life Support Services, Inc. at $58,256. Senior Resources at $548,046. Midland Housing Alliance at $419,986. Prisma Health Midlands at $348,189. And Serve and Connect at $77,477. All of these are up to amounts and they are pending desk reviews. That is the recommendation of the committee.
Thank you. Any questions? Discussions? This is for 19A3, food insecurity. Yes, sir, that is the category. Ms. McBride, you're recognized.
Madam Chair, I would just like to go on record saying it's not that I don't support some of the grantees. It's that, as I have stated previously, I have concerns about the overall process with our grants, and I will be voting no on all three. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We've heard the committee's recommendation for the food insecurity section. Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
No.
Livingston,
No.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker, Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes?
Motion approved.
One final category.
Back and come back, who's not? Do we still have anything?
No, we have not gotten to workforce training, and that still has one that he's recusing himself from. You're welcome. Ms. Barron, you're recognized.
Thank you. And our final category is workforce training. And so our recommendation is to fund all of the ones listed there, all the ones listed that applied. However, what we've given, we've asked the staff to reduce the amount so that it does stay in the proportion of the allocations requested. And again, all of these will be up to amounts and will all pend a desk review. That's the recommendation.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know if you were going to read through the amounts like the others.
No,
Thank you.
that motion was different. That motion was different because we are asking staff, because we're requesting them to look at each one that had applied, and they will make the adjustments to make sure that it's proportionate with the amount that we already have within that category.
Mr. Livingston, you recognized.
I just want to express my concern I expressed when I sat in on that meeting, and that is when the committee decided to take all of the applicants, rather than look at prioritize them in terms of importance and so forth, the decision was just simply to reduce the amount proportionally for every of the organizations, based on the overage. And I think the thing to do would have been to look at those that I think would have the greatest and most significant impact on workforce training in our community. I would like to consider funding, for example, the USC Technology Incubator, based on evaluations project. It seems to have, in my opinion, the greatest impact on workforce training in our county based on it. That by that significant amount, by just simply leveraging each agency at the same rate when you're trying to reduce them, and the same argument I made in the budget process is, we have to sometimes make tough decisions and fund those organizations that we think better meet the needs of the county instead of just simply saying we're going to just simply cut them all the same. And so that's my concern with this particular group, and why I can't support.
Ms. Barron, you recognized.
Thank you. And Mr. Livingston, I appreciate you sharing your comments as you stated in our committee meeting. And one of my concerns, well, I have two concerns with this, and that is that we hired a third-party vendor for a particular reason. And that is so that council would not really get in the weeds of making decisions on these organizations, and that the merit of their application and their process, we would stay true to. Some of these categories, we did have to kind of make some adjustments, but at the end of the day, and I think the workforce training category was one of those categories where the scoring was really neck and neck. It wasn't necessarily one of those where we had a 70 and a 90. It wasn't those categories. And the other piece is that when we look at ARPA dollars are designed for particular areas of the community and areas of our county. And when we start to really look at the impact, those were not necessarily questions that we ask, and we would at some point, I think we're becoming, we're not being objective to the process, and we start to imply personal preference. And I just don't, I think that we maintain a very transparent process here. And one of the reasons why in the committee meeting, we just made the decision, because when we started looking at percentages here and percentages there, I know as a chair, it would be very difficult for me to be able to explain how we came up with these percentages. And so we felt like this was the most reasonable way to do things. I hear your response, I hear your understanding, and I respect that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barron. If I would, I'd like to make a comment as well, just that I expressed this in the committee meeting as well. I do agree we had an outside vendor look and rank these, and for this category, I would like us to at least look at the top 4 and fund them at the full amount requested. These organizations did rank very well, and they requested a certain amount to be able to deliver a program. And I would like to think that we could be able to fund them at the amount they requested so that they can deliver that program. And, not being able to fund everyone in the categories is kind of something that happens, that we have to make a choice. But the top 4, I think, is a clear, explainable way that is taken away biased. It says, look, we used outside company, these are the top 4, and we're funding them at the full amount requested instead of reducing their amount. And I would like to make a kind of substitute motion to move forward with the top 4 and workforce training for ARPA grant funding.
Just a point of clarification before the second, potential second. Can you list those top four?
Mr. Branham,
Yes.
you're recognized.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The top four, could you name them? The organizations?
Austin Wilkes Society, U.S. Columbia Technology Incubator, Midlands Fatherhood Coalition, and the Richland County Public Library.
Thank you. I'll second your motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, would you call for the vote?
Branham,
Yes?
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride. No. Livingston.
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
No?
Walker, Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
I recuse myself because I provided work for the umbrella organization of one of the applicants.
Motion approved.
Ms. Barron, you recognize.
Thank you. So those are all of the, at this point, we would have awarded or we have made recommendation for awards for all of our categories, I think, except for one that we need to really flesh out further. I see you, Mr. Brown. One further, we did include the youth services as a part of our budget process. And we do plan to do something different with that. I don't think that's going to come out of our committee. But in our committee, we still need to discuss the small business category, which we had a very overwhelming response to the $1 million that we did have to award. So we will be doing that. And I just want to say to the committee and to the staff, as well as council members, this was a major project, one we thought was we really had good intent to do, and I still think that we did good work with it. And so with that, at the end of the day, whereas some of the decisions we may not all agree with how we got there, I think for me, to note that $14 million, even though some of them were going different ways, we set out to do exactly what we said to do, and that was to have a transparent process and to get this money into the hands of local nonprofits who were negatively impacted by COVID-19. A little behind schedule, but with that, the funds are still getting there. And I'm happy for the work that we've done. Mr. Brown, before I turn my portion over.
Yes, ma'am, I thought you were going to turn it over, and I want to ask, from a timeliness standpoint, we would request reconsideration.
Move to reconsider.
Second.
Ms. Barron, can you just specify which one? Are you doing all three, or?
Oh, I apologize. Yes, move to reconsider all of our recommendations that were made tonight.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride. Yes. Livingston. No. Teratio,
Recused?
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker, Mackey,
Yes.
English,
No.
Newton.
I recuse myself.
Did I call Pugh? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh, no.
Motion fails.
Thank you. Ms. Barron, did you have anything else?
That concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you. I do just want to take a moment to say thank you to Ms. Barron and the Coronavirus Ad Hoc Committee and all of their hard work, because this definitely has been a lot of meetings and a lot of reviews, so thank you. All right. Do you want to call back the chair?
No, but I will.
We're at number 20.
20?
Mm-hmm.
Order the Community Impact Grants Committee that would be given by the Honorable Jessica Mackey. Madam Vice Chair, you recognize.
Thank you. The committee met regarding our fiscal year 24 grant application review. During our last committee meeting, we approved community impact grants application and guidelines. The community impact grant is currently open, with scheduled to close on July 31st. We also had many, well, not many, I think 2 public information sessions where folks came in to get information on how to apply for the grants, and that is available online. During that process, there was questions that were brought up by committee and council members about how we would actually be reviewing the process or reviewing the grants to make final selections. The Community Impact Grant, because it is a newly formed ad hoc committee, it does not have, I guess, a stated review process. And so the committee met to establish what that process would be. The committee voted and recommends that we work with an outside party to review the Community Impact Grant applications that we receive, and they will provide the committee a report. The committee, those on the committee would then review that and then make their recommendations to the full body for funding. And so our recommendation gave approval to county administrator and staff to move forward with identifying the outside vendor with additional I guess, procurement needs or purchasing power to do such to meet the time frame that is already advertised to award the grants.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of the committee. Any questions or discussion? You recognize Mr. Acio.
Thank you. I brought this up in committee, but just wanted to say for the full council that there will be obviously a small cost to this service, and that will be taken out of the fund or itself. And so just want to acknowledge to ourselves and to the public that there will not be 100% of the money granted, that some small portion will go towards this administrative cost.
That is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride, Livingston,
Yes.
Teratio,
Yes?
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes our report.
All right, next item on the agenda, item 21, other items, items 21A, and I am waiting for a motion from someone.
Mr. Chair,
You recognize Mr. Pugh?
I would like to make a motion to approve 21A and B.
Second?
All right, that's all items under 21A and items under 21B. It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Branham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston, Teratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Chair.
Yes. You know what? I'm going to go with Ms. Newton, just because she got you just by a hair.
That's
there.
cool, sir.
Vocally, she got you just by a hair.
Move to reconsider items
Second.
21A and B.
And Mr. Brown is eager to chime in too. So, Mr. Brown?
Previous item, Mr. Chair, so I can wait.
Well, Ms. Newton, would you make a substitute motion of your own motion or amend your own motion?
I do, Mr. Chair, move to reconsider items 20 through 21.
Second. Properly second. Any discussion? There being none, Madam Clerk?
Branham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston, Teratio,
No.
Weaver,
No.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
No.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
Move to adjourn.
No, we're not there yet.
Sorry, I
We're not
got
there
jumped the
yet.
gun.
We're
I
not there
apologize.
yet.
But it is
It
non-debatable.
was bad enough I had to hang out back there, but I had to hang out by myself back there, back for 22. There's nothing for executive session, right? Mr. Wright?
That's correct.
All right, and item 23, motion period. Madam Clerk, could you scroll up, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Which is Ms. Teracio's motion. Ms. Teracio, you recognized.
Thank you. This is a motion to have County Council authorize the county administrator to enter into negotiations with a Divine RO Development LLC or its assignee regarding the potential sale of the property located at 1430 Colonial Life Boulevard, also known as the Old Haverty's property. This is an entity that would like to provide grocery services to the area. Don't know how much more I will state just beyond that, but I do believe it would be of service to the neighborhood to have a large grocery store with fresh vegetables and fruit and other foods.
Thank you, Mr. Racio and Mr. Wright. Just some parliamentary guidance here. So this can we vote, if it gets seconded, can we vote on it once it's seconded, or do we need to vote to consider it and then we actually vote on the item itself?
If you actually want to vote right now to approve it, you have to vote to consider it first, and then vote to approve the matter.
Okay.
Because generally, a motion, you send it to committee or do something like that. So if you don't want to send it to committee, you vote to take it up tonight.
That's all right. Well, does this motion have a second?
Second.
It's been moved to properly second. Any discussion? You recognize Ms. Mackey and then Ms. McBride.
Thank you. And just for clarification, does this require unanimous consent to actually make it to
take it
agenda
up.
tonight?
Yes, to take it
Okay,
up
just want to
tonight,
clarify
yes.
that wasn't pointed out.
Yes, that's correct. Ms. McBride?
Yeah, my question was protocol in terms of a motion coming up just like this and then being able to approve it, but it requires unanimous consent. Okay.
You don't get unanimous. Any additional discussion, Ms. Newton? Or
So this vote is for consideration, so we vote again?
right. So
Okay.
if we get a unanimous
Gotcha.
vote, right? So the vote right now is whether or not we're going to consider it. So if the vote is unanimous, then we come and vote again.
Yeah.
But if it's not, then I'll just send it to a committee. Okay. Any additional discussion?
Just quickly say that, again, I like the idea and so forth, but this process is not create too many problems in the future. Everybody be popular with stuff and saying, negotiate this or that, so forth. This could work. Not to, support the motion, but not to just move forward with it.
Sounds like we're not going to have unanimity, but we have to memorialize that. So Madam Clerk, take the vote.
Brenham,
No.
Pugh,
No.
McBride,
No.
Livingston, Terratio,
This is to take up the motion? Yes.
And to take it up tonight. Right. To take it up tonight.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
No.
Walker,
No.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
No.
Newton.
No.
Motion fails.
I'm going to send this to the A&F committee. Would that be? Yeah, I think A&F. Send it there. All right. Next item on the agenda is item 24, adjournment.
Adjourn.
Second.
All right. That is non-debatable. Madam Clerk?
Brenham,
Yes.
Pugh,
Yes.
McBride,
Yes.
Livingston, Terratio,
Yes.
Weaver,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Walker,
Yes.
Mackey,
Yes.
English,
Yes.
Newton.
No. Just kidding. Yes. Yes.
Motion
She's not
approved.
kidding. She's not kidding. She's not.
Motion approved.
We are adjourned.